Hey guys, how's it going? So, this is my first time doing a care collab video, and this care collab is obviously on this little Miltonia Sunset here. I'll have a list of all the other channels that are involved in the description below. Anyways, anyone is free to join in and do these. Ninja Orchids is the one who coordinates everything and gets everyone straightened out on what they need to do. So if you want to join in, you can get in contact with her somehow. But anyways, this is my Miltonia Sunset. This is the first time she's bloomed in about 2 years now. Mostly because if a lot of you know what happened the last couple of years, I was traveling around, couldn't really take care of my orchids the way I wanted to, and a lot of them suffered, and unfortunately one of them was this guy. But on the upside, it's come back quite well. This plant used to be 4 times this. For those of you who saw this probably 3 years ago when I first got it, it was a very large plant, and it had a lot of pseudobulbs, and it even had quite a few flower spikes on it. But anyways, this is what it looks like now. It either came to me with fusarium or it contracted it somehow. And down here, this is one of the original pseudobulbs, and it basically, the entire plant got reduced down to this. That one single pseudobulb, leafless pseudobulb down there. So I kept it. It really didn't do anything. It obviously couldn't, because it didn't have a way to feed itself or hydrate itself. It didn't have any roots or anything. But after about 2 years, it put out this teeny tiny little immature growth down here, and it's maybe a 1/4 inch big. I mean, you can see my thumb. In comparison, it's a very small pseudobulb. But once it did that, it created a root system. It got 2 leaves on it, which allowed it to photosynthesize, feed itself, and hydrate itself with a new root system. And about 3 months ago, it put out this one, which is clearly significantly bigger, much bigger, about 3 times bigger than the previous growth, and it still has all of its leaves, which is nice. It's got this really nice big green leaf here. And about a month ago, it started growing this one, and I didn't really expect it to bloom just because it was so dilapidated and didn't have any energy reserves at all to bloom off of. But when I saw it had a flower spike, I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna have to cut that off so the plant doesn't suffer. But it's only got 2 buds, or 1 bloom and 1 bud, so it's not gonna take too much energy from the plant, and the pseudobulbs look fantastic. They don't have any wrinkling or any kind of signs of desiccation, and it's got this very expansive branching root system down there. Don't mind that fuzzy mold stuff. That happens when I put too much nutrients in my fertilizer mix, and the moss, it gets kind of that brown crispy stuff on top, which the mold feeds on. But once I flush them out, the mold goes away. So it's actually the next time I water is when I'll do the flush out. But my growing conditions for this guy is on my lowest shelf, so my entire rack here, I'm sitting on the floor, but this is a 6-foot rack, and here's my little sensor that tells you what the temperature and humidity is. But this guy stays down here on the bottom rack because it is a cooler grower, and I keep it in live moss, which stays constantly not wet, but constantly moist. Very damp. You can see there is standing water. Whenever I water these, I always put about a 1/4 inch of standing water in the bottom, and then once that depletes and the moss looks like it's around this stage, I give it some more water. and it really benefits these cooler growers. I actually did a little bit of an experiment that I'll show you in a different video on one of my Miltonia phalaenopsis. I have 2 of them, and I did a little experiment on them, and I'll show you that in a different video. But my care conditions for this is around 75 degrees, 80 degrees during the day, and then at night it drops down close to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity stays around 45 to 50. But that's just since I've gotten my humidifier going. Over the summer, it did not have that much humidity. It was close to around 20%, which is the #1 reason why I grow them in the live sphagnum, because it just helps boost the humidity around the plant itself, and which is why it gets this crinkling on the leaves here. You can't really help that if the humidity isn't high enough. But its next newest growths, actually I think it's got a new growth starting down in here. One of these. Oh, there it is. Right down there at the base. You can barely see it poking out. There he is. So on that next newest growth, it shouldn't have the crinkling on the leaves because the humidity is now going to stay much higher, and we're all coming up on the end of fall, beginning of winter here, so the temperature in my grow space is going to be reduced significantly. I feed this one exactly the same way I feed all my other orchids. I create a generic fertilizer mix. It's usually between 300 and 375, and I give that to all my orchids regardless of what kind of growth they're in, whether it's vegetative or blooming growth. And to counteract the salts that the plants don't use the next watering, I just water them with just straight tap water. And our water is coming from a well, and for a well, the TDS is actually only 50, right around 45, 50 parts per million. So there isn't very much calcium, hard calcium in our water, which is nice. So that allows me to water with that instead of having to go through using a reverse osmosis system or having to collect rainwater or using my zero water filter, which brings the parts per million down to exactly 0, which is nice, especially for the guys growing in this stuff. But I've been watering the guys in my live sphagnum the same way I've been watering the rest of my orchids, and there hasn't been any downside to that yet. So I'm just gonna keep doing that and see what happens. If it continues to not promote any problems, then I'll keep watering it that way. But if I start getting a lot of calcium buildup on top of the moss, then I'll switch it back to the reverse osmosis zero water system, and yeah, we'll just have to go from there. But for the time being, I'll keep watering it and fertilizing it the way I normally do the rest of my orchids. It's clearly not minding, it's loving its little routine here. So, but yeah, this is my Miltonia Sunset, and I actually have another piece of it over here, but it doesn't look as great. And it's coming back really well, actually. This was its last growth. It did bloom, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think it bloomed from there, so it had 4 flowers on it. I know this one for sure was the first one, so it had 1, 2, 3. It had 4 blooms on it for sure. So this one's doing a lot better. And funny story is, my original plant, I had actually divided it and gave half of it to my mom before I knew it had fusarium, and her half never got it. So she doesn't really know how to take care of orchids. She doesn't really know what she's doing with them. She just thinks they're pretty flowered house plants, and she treats them that way. So I have hers potted up in a very, very loose, fluffy dead sphagnum moss, and it's been doing really well for her. It blooms constantly and is always putting out new growths. So when I repotted hers last time, it had gotten so big, I actually took a division of that, which was a division of my original half that I'd given her. So technically I have 2 of the same exact plant, but this one just suffered from the fusarium, and it had a hard time coming back. But it did, it bloomed first, and this one has an immature growth, but it's starting to mature. The base is starting to get plumped up and even has another new growth right here. So it's doing really well, and I think this one even has a flower spike coming in right there. Let me get you down in here so you can see. Nope, not that leaf. Pardon my reach here. Flower spike way down in there, if it'll focus, right there. So this one will flower too. I'm hoping it'll flower more than just, or produce more than just 2 blooms like this little guy, which I'm sure it will. It's a much bigger, healthier plant, but we'll see. So yeah, this is my care collab video for the Miltonia Sunset. I hope you all enjoyed and learned something, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.